Lesson 25. I'll announce for you, Marcia. Okay. Die Päurin in Pilitzkes Vorwalk und in die Dörfer herum haben sich schon gegräht zum Schnitt. The peasants on Pilitzkes farm and on the village and in the villages around had already started to prepare for the harvest. They haben jetzt selten etwas gebracht in Städtelereien zu verkaufen, weil sie seien gewähnt vernommen auf die Felder. They very seldom now brought anything into the shtetl to sell because they were taken up with. They were not taken up with. That must be a better way of saying that. They were busy with the with their fields. Dorfleifel pflegen a Häusgehen mit Zeck aufkäufen. So Dorfleifer, I would imagine, are like messengers from runners of some kind, would go out with sacks to buy a measure, a certain amount of. Oh, sorry, I should be here. Mit Zeck aufkäufen, a Mestel Korn, a Hun, a Polkwort Hirsche, oder was me kon kriegen beim Päuer. They went out to buy a measure of rye, a chicken, or a few quarts, I guess, of millet, or whatever they could get by the peasants, what they were selling. Sarah had genommen a Sack auf the places und is aufgegangen in a neunte Dörfel ankäufen. Sarah took a sack on her shoulders and also went out to a nearby village to buy things.
I have a suggestion for Dorfsleifer. There's the word Dorfsgeher, which is perhaps what he what he meant. A Dorfsgeher is a small-scale gatherer and seller of farm produce.
Okay, that's a nice way of putting it. So these people would go out and try and gather some things from the peasants around. Yankov hat ihr vorgehalten, als es ist nicht passig, war a Tagendicke Isha und noch dazu von a Weib von einem Alamed zu gehen mit der Sack in Dorf rein. Okay, well, I'll stop there. It's a long sentence. Yaakov had reproached Sarah that it was not appropriate for a pregnant woman, and even beyond that, more than that, for the wife of the teacher, who has some status now, to go with the sack in the village around. Aber Sarah hat gebankt noch die Lonkes, die Felder, die Gemäusezer, wo es paschen sich die Rinder. But Sarah had longed for the meadows, the fields. I don't know what a Gemäusezer is.
It's a swamp.
The swamp where
wetlands, let's say.
Wetlands, protected wetlands, where the herds of cattle were grazing. They grazed in the wetlands, okay? Vino, sie is a Reus von Städtel. As soon as she got out of the Städtel, hat sie ausgetun die Schicht. She took off her shoes. Sie aufgehangen auf die Achseln. she took off her shoes and she threw them over her shoulders. The städtische Weiber haben euch ihr gelacht. The shtetl, the women of the shtetl, laughed at her. They haben geteinet zu ihr. They yelled at her, or they said to her, Teheinet should be a stronger word. Stumme Lea, wie soll wirst du dich dingen? So you mute. Leela must be some kind of a Polish word for some kind of like little stupid thing. You
in
mute.
Russian, the word Lala is a doll. Perhaps that's what this is.
Or like you mute little doll. How are you going to bargain with them? Machmas alle haben gemeint, as sie is toy, because everybody bereaved and thought that she was deaf. Hat man sie berät und getrieben, euch ihr Sposs in the organ. So because they thought that she was deaf, they allowed themselves to speak badly about her. And they threw not vitriol, they threw vituperations. How would you, what is Spaß?
No, getrieben Spaß, they made fun of.
They made fun of her. They made fun of her in her eyes, in her eyes.
That means in her presence.
In her in the organ, in her presence.
They thought that she couldn't understand them.
Yeah,
that she couldn't hear them.
She couldn't hear
them. And the word lelya, by the way, is a variant of the word lela, which means pupa of an insect. So Stumalela perhaps means mute pupa.
Mute, yet unformed animal or thing.
Yeah.
Mir hat sie gerufen, stumme Behema, Golem, Glump, Leckisch, narrische Trop und allerlei andere Zunehmen. They called her a dumb animal, a golem, meaning a golem, like a mute, a figure out of clay, a glump, also a stupid thing, a leckish, an oaf, and a simpleton, and all other nicknames. Wie hat bedeutet Jacobin, was hat angekrogen als Gans. They were regretful for Yaakov that
they felt sorry for.
They felt sorry for. Sure, they felt sorry for Yaakov that he had received such a goose. Teil haben herausgedrungen, als sie hat gemusst haben erreichen hatten, und hat sie verhandelt zu Jacobin vernaden. Some of them concluded that she must have had a rich father, and he had managed to get Yaakov for the dowry. Andere haben zugegeben, als der Jakob allein muss euch sein, ein abgerissener Bock, ob ist gegangen zu der Gruppe mit der Zieg. Others, so some said it was because of the big dough, the money he was going to get. Others thought that Yaakov himself must be some kind of a tattered goat. If he went to the chuppah with such a tzig, such a goat.
Yeah, Bok is male and Tzig is feminine.
Okay, so the two goats, that's what they were.
He goat and
Sarah,
nanny goat, yes.
yeah, right. Sarah hat kaum angehalten, die Tränen. Sarah could barely hold back the tears. Sie hat noch gemusst machen, a gute Miene zu der Beisespiel. And she even had to act, uh, give like put a good face to this nasty play talk, or to this nasty uh, play on her, derision of her. Die Poilem haben sie aufgenommen mit Spott. The peasants started with also with derision, with Spott. Sie haben gewissen der Stumme Jiddischke mit Zeichens als von der Steppes, wellen von Snai anreiten die Handanikes und auskeulen die übrige Juden. So what were they saying, the peasants? They made to the supposedly mute Jewish woman with signs, because she couldn't understand, that from the steps would again rise up the Cossacks, and they would slaughter the Jews who remained. Machnis a Stumme is toib, because a Stumme is deaf. Hat man sich bei ihr nicht gehitten. Because they thought she was deaf, they did nothing to hide their behavior or to not display their derision. Me hat geschmust, als der Poritz Pilitsky verleisigt die polnische Elf mit der jiddischen Ungeziefer, und als es wird bald kommen an Milchoma, an Untergang, an Ungerettnis oder ein anderer Plag von Himmel. A Straf verlassen die ungläubigen Gottmelder gefunden a Schutz. There's the word. I'm going to start back there. Sorry. They said to each other, as the Poritz Pilitskis was covering the Polish soil.
Verleisigen, making lousy.
Making lousy with lice. He was covering the soil with lice. With the Yiddish Ungeziefer, the vermin, with the vermin, the Jewish vermin. And very soon was going to come a war or an epidemic or some other kind of catastrophe, an Umberletnisch. I don't know what that is specifically.
That means a bad harvest.
A bad harvest, Umberletnisch, or some other plague from the heavens, a punishment for allowing these unbelieving, the God murderers, the God murdering unbelievers, giving them protection. Sarah hat sich kaum angehalten, sie nicht abzuentern. Sarah could barely hold herself off from answering back to them. Bei Nacht, when Sarah is geblieben allein mit Jacobin, at night, when Sarah was alone with Jacob, hat sie geweint bei ihm und ihm gezählt, was die jüdische Leid haben gesagt wegen ihr. At night, when Sarah was alone with Jacob, she cried. And she cried in front of him, and she told him what these Jewish people were saying about her. Wegen ihr, Sachen und ihm, about her and also about him. Jacobin. Jacobin hat sich auf ihr angebeselt. Jakob became angry with her. Mitor a seine Sachen nicht noch derzählen. We're not permitted, Sarah, to repeat these things, to say it again. Das is Rechilus. This is gossip. This is Aza Avera. This Essen Chazir. Or Chazir. It's as much of a sin as eating pig. Now she's talking. Megan Zindlin und ich tornisch noch erzählen. They can curse that way, and I cannot say anything. They tun euch nicht. They also shouldn't. And she says, alle tun sie das. Everybody's doing this. Afilu Braina, das Weib von Gershon der Rosh, they're all doing it. Even Braina, the wife of Gershon, the Rosh Hakol, Rosh Hakol. There's tutos. That wären, then, see, von Gershon, der Rosh Hakol. Wären es tutos, that wären bestraft in Himmel. He's saying this now, Yaakov. Whoever does this is going to be punished in heaven. Die Heilige Zworen, warnen, als für jeden Wort Loshen Hora, Rechilus, Litzones, brot men sich in der Feiren von Gehenom. The holy books warn us that for every word of gossip, Lashon Hora is worse than gossip. It's bad talk. How would you say that in English? Rechilus is gossip. So Lashon Hora is slander, we'll say, mockery. You're going to burn in the fires of hell. Wellen alle sich broten in Gehenom? She asks. Everybody is going to burn in hell.
And usually in Yiddish, that's pronounced Genom.
Oh, Genom. Okay, Genom. In Genom, everybody's going to burn in hell. In Genom is genug groß. Genom is very big. Hell is very big. Der Rebbetzin hat euch gelacht und zugeschockelt mit dem Kopf. Even the Rebbetzin laughed with them, and she shook her head. In Himmel,
yeah, zugeschockelt. She nodded.
She nodded her head. She was agreeing with them.
Yeah.
In Himmel is men keinem nicht nosepone. In heaven, there is no preferential treatment. There's no preference given to anybody. Afilu wenn Moshe Rabbeinu hat gesündigt, hat men im bestraft. Even when Moshe Rabbeinu sinned, he was punished. Sarah hat sich betracht. Maybe I should stop here. Wenn Reden schlecht ist, Sarah thought about this. Wenn Reden schlecht ist, wollt gewähn, Tausend Chelik, sind wie Essen Chazir, wollten sie das nicht getun. If speaking bad things was 1,000 times more a sin as eating pig, they wouldn't do this.
No, Tausend Chelik, I think that means 1,000th as big as.
A Tausend Chelik, yes, 1,000 part, yes, 1,000 part. Yeah, quite a discussion, but there's no preferential treatment. Okay. All right, Elka, thank you.
I will probably need a lot of help with translating. I'm sorry, but I'm grateful to be here anyway. Cool. Ik wil dir wijzen, es is a love verbod in der Torah. Come, I'll show you that it's written that way in the Torah.
Yeah, and a lav is a
Yaakov
prohibition, a farbot, a prohibition. It's a simple prohibition. When it says lo, do not in the Torah, that's considered then a negative commandment, and it's called then in Yiddish a lav.
A lav.
And
Nice
this
word.
is referring to gossiping or referring to saying mean things to people?
Well, the general idea of Lashon Hara.
Right. The general idea of using your mouth, of not controlling your mouth. Simon, not restraining your mouth.
Yaakov hat aufgemischt a Chumash und ihr gewissen schwarz auf white. So Yaakov took a Bible and he showed it to her in black and white. Hat euch geteicht für ihr die Pesukim, was haben zu tun mit die dosige Evrus.
Averis.
Averis. He showed her the passages that had to do with this. What is Averis?
Sins.
Sin.
With this particular sin.
With these particular
Hat
sins.
dir gesagt? Okay, thank you. Hat dir gesagt, was die Gemara
Darshant.
Darshant darauf. And he told her what the Gemara had to say on that subject. Hat gerät still, wir soll nicht der Herren in Dreußen. And he spoke quietly to her so that it couldn't be heard outside. Hat geöffnet die Tür, zu sehen, sie emets herzlich nicht unter oder lugt nicht in Schlüsselloch. He opened the door to see whether something actually, but
no, and somebody was listening.
What is looked?
No, we haven't gotten a.
Yeah.
Emet's herzlich nicht unter. Unterherren is to eavesdrop. So whether somebody is eavesdropping, or now lugen is to lurk.
Oder lugt nicht in Schlüsselloch. What is the Schlüsselloch?
The keyhole.
Keyhole.
So he opened the door to see if anybody was actually eavesdropping or looking through the keyhole. Sora hat gefragt. Sora asked him, was halten die Jiden ein Verbot und dem anderen nicht? Why do the Jews have a prohibition and the others don't?
No. Why do they halten? Why do they observe one prohibition but not another? So they observe Chazer, they don't observe Lashon Hara.
Right.
Okay. Yaakov hat genommen Schoklen mit dem Kopf. Yaakov scratched his head?
No.
Yeah. He was moving his head back and forth. Yeah, shaking his head.
He's shaking his head. He was like saying, yeah, that's right, Sarah.
Es ist allemal so gewesen. It's always been that way. Davor hat man
Chorev
gemacht, das Beis Hamikdash. Chorev gemacht, is that ignored?
No, destroyed.
Destroyed.
So that's why they kept destroying the temple.
That's why they destroyed the temple. The idea is
that's why the temple was destroyed.
Yeah, that's according to the Orthodox, the Second Temple was destroyed because of sinas chinam, unnecessary hatred between people.
And probably talking badly to one another and doing other things which are, let's mocking one another. These sins, even though they may have kept kashrut, they did these other sins.
The Rauf haben geklagt, die Nevoim.
Nevi'im.
Nevi'im. Can you help with that one also, please?
Yeah, klugging is to complain here. The Nevi'im are the prophets.
Uh-huh.
So
the prophet complained about that?
Yeah, about the same thing the prophets complained.
Yeah. Man hat gebracht Karbonis. Aber man hat beräubt dem
Yosem.
Dem Yosem und die Almona. Can you do that one too, please, Rafi?
Sure. They did bring sacrifices, but still they were robbing the orphans and the widows.
The Yosem was the orphans.
Yosem.
Nicht essen. Yeah. Nicht essen chazer is geringer wie zäumen das Moil.
Oh, that's true. Not to eat pork is easier than to restrain your mouth or saying bad things.
Komm, well, lernen mit dir Kapitel Yeshaya. That's so. Come and I'll teach you a chapter of Isaiah.
Yes.
I think that's enough for me because it'll give somebody else a chance.
So Yanka, if you want to go next. You are muted. Yeah.
Ja, okay. Jakob hat rausgenommen Apostel Jeschaya und ausgeteilt Soren das erste Kapitel. So Jacob took out a passage from Isaiah and he explained to Sarah the first chapter. Sarah hat gehad a verbliefte as der Novi sagt das eigener was Jakob. Sarah was amazed that the prophet said the same thing as Jakob. Gott hat genug das Blut und das Fest von die Fets von die Widers und Schöpfen. God has had enough of the blood and the fat of the rams and the sheep. So God doesn't need the sacrifices that are brought without the proper intention. Will nicht mehr soll kommen zu ihm in Häuf mit verblutigter Hand. He doesn't want people to come to approach the Häuf, the court, with bloodied hands. Vergleicht die Ältester von Israel zu die Rothaaren von Sodom, was Gott hat verwisst. So he compared the elders of Israel to the leaders of Sodom, whom God had laid waste. Es ist schön gewesen, spätlich in Ovent, aber in Scherbele mit Eil hat geglimmert das Knätel. It was already getting late in at night, in the evening, but the oil in the lamp still, the wick of the oil in the lamp still glimmered. Arum dem Lempel hat sich gedreht micken babbelig. Around the this little light, mosquitoes or gnats, insects were they were flying around. Jacobs schottendicker Kopf hat sich geschockelt über den Balken. Jacob's shadowy head was nodding on this, moving around on the ceiling. The reflection was moving around on the ceiling. Hinteren Oven hat gegritzelt a grill. Behind the oven, a cricket was chirping. Die Liebschaft zu Jakoben hat sich ausgemischt in Sorren mit Pachad. The love of Sarah towards Jacob became infused with fear.
I would say mixed.
Mingled.
Mixed, yeah.
Mingled, okay. Mingled with fear. Sie hat sich geschrocken, sei vor dem furchtigen Gott, was sitzt im Himmel und hört jedes Wort. So she was afraid both of the fearful God who was sitting in heaven and who heard every word, jeden Gedank, every thought, sei far die Peurim, was willen me so wieder schechten jeden und bagroben Kinder lebendiger hate. And also she was afraid of the peasants who wanted once again to slaughter Jews and to bury children alive. Sei für die Jiden, was ein Teil von der Teure hitten sei ab und die andere Teil brechen sei und der wecken dem Grimmzorn von dem Allmächtigen. And so she was afraid of the peasants, and she was afraid of the who would kill, murder Jews and bury their children alive. And also she was afraid of the Jews who kept one part of the Torah and they
disobeyed.
They disobey another part, and they arouse the anger or the rage of the Almighty. Sorrow hat gegeben Jakoben a Wort mehr, a Wort mehr keinmal nicht ob zu der Zeilen kein Beredigtzer. So Sarah wanted to could this be that he wanted to promise Yaakov that
she gave him her word.
She gave her word, her promise, her pledge that she wouldn't, that she would not again talk about. She was not going to indulge in any of this talk. That she would not. But she wanted to make a pledge for that. Mehr kein Mal nicht.
I think that she wouldn't tell on these people who were speaking so badly about her. Would that be a possible understanding of it?
Yeah, I mean, he said in the beginning, you're not to repeat these terrible things that they've said about you. He chastised, he reprimanded her for repeating the bad things that those women had said. And now she was going to give him her word that, all right, I'm not going to repeat that anymore. I'll just absorb it.
Ja, okay. Sie hat ihm sei wie nicht übergegeben, als was sie hat gehört. And in any event, she hadn't told him everything that she had heard. Auf ein Fremmer hat man gerät in Städtel, als geht falsche Wog und a falsche Moss. They spoke about one shopkeeper in the shtetl who used false weights and false measurements. Wegen der zweiten hat man gemurmelt, als beis der Schritte hat begann wird sein Schutter. And about another, they were murmuring that at the time of slaughtering animals, he had stolen from his partner. Sarah hat schon lang gewollt fragen Yaakov. Sarah, for a long time, she had wanted to ask Yaakov, ob jeden seinen wahrhaftig an uns der Welt Volk, was können sie, wie sie können sie begehen als seine sind. If the Jews were such an honest and chosen people, how is it possible that they could commit such sins?
Wahrhaftig here means really. If they were really such special people. No, there's no concept of honesty in that.
Okay.
So wahrhaftig is if they were really such bore, yeah.
Okay. Een Sach is Sarah klar. One thing was clear to Sarah. Yaakov is a rechtvaardiger man. Yaakov was a righteous man. Ob Gott hat Jakob so lieb wie sie, Sarah, demolt wird leben ewig. If he, Yaakov, loved, if God loved Yaakov in the same way that Sarah did, then he would live forever. Sie hat nairt gebeten Gott für ihm. She only prayed to God for him. Sie hat keinem nicht gehabt außer ihm. She didn't have anyone besides him. Sie wollte keinem achutz ihm nicht gekonnt liebhaben. She couldn't love anybody but him. Wiewohl sie hat gefunden in Städtel zwischen Menschen, hat sich ihr oft ausgewiesen, als sie ist abgerissen von allem. Although she found herself often in the shtetl among people. It often seemed that she was detached from everybody. Von die Poerim hat sie sich schon gehabt erweitert. She had distanced herself from the peasants. Zu die Jiden von Pilitz hat sie sich nicht ernenntert, and to the Jews of Pilitz she hadn't come near to them.
Well, how could she? How could she? How could she, given their treatment of her?
Right. Yaakov is for ihr als. Yaakov was everything to her. A man, a tata, a brother, a husband, a father, a brother. Wie nur hat ausgeloschen das Licht, hat sie genommen rufen, soll kommen zu ihr gelegen. As soon as he extinguished the candle, the light, she began to call for him to come to her bed. Yaakov hat sich gewitzelt mit ihr, and Yaakov joked with her. Du, Schickse, a jüdische Tochter, tor nicht sein kein Tovas bepe, monen allein. You Gentile, as a Jewish woman, you should not call for me on your own. Vardem kumt dir a get on aksuba. A punishment for this is that you should be given a divorce without a ksuba, a marriage document.
Here, the ksuba means the money that would come to a divorced woman, which is written into the document.
Okay.
Written into the get? It's written into the get?
No, it's written into the ksuba.
Oh, written into the ksuba.
Yeah.
A get on a ksuba. So it's like she could have a get, and as though she didn't have the rights of her ksuba.
Yes.
Aha.
Wow.
Right. That's pretty hefty punishment for just that. I mean, that's wow. She can't mon in a lane. She cannot demand a loan. I was not aware of that.
Okay. Raphael?
Okay. Was mega jüdische Tochter. So what is a Jewish woman allowed to do? Haben Kinder, was wollen die denn Gott? Well, she can have children who wish to serve God. Yeah. Well, haben a ganz tuts. Yep, I'll have a full dozen.
Right.
Sie nicht bald geschlafen. Nor erzählt von Tzadikim Tzidkanyas. He didn't quickly have her go to sleep. I guess Bashlofen Z. He didn't go to sleep soon. I don't really know how to turn schlofen into a transitive verb, but that's what's happening here.
But I think he didn't allow her to go to sleep, perhaps?
Something like that. Yeah.
Z. He didn't allow her to go to sleep.
Okay.
And he started telling her. He wanted to continue the conversation.
Yeah, but the question is a grammatical question.
Oh, all right. Well,
the grammatical question is, how do you turn schlofen into a transitive verb? Because Z is the direct object. Right?
Yeah.
So to allow to go to sleep makes some sense.
Yeah.
But rather he told her stories of righteous people, male and female. Sie hat gewollt wissen als, was tut sich in Gan Eden. She wanted to hear about everything that happens in paradise. Und was wird sein, the Mashiach wird kommen, and what will happen when the Messiah. wenn Yankov, wird Yankov demos euch sein, ihr Mann? Would at that point Yankov still be her husband? Wird sie lernen reden Lashon Kodesh? Will he teach her to speak Hebrew? Wird sie mitnehmen in Bes Hamikdash? Will he take her along into the temple? Yankov hat ihr gesagt, Yankov told her, as a tag wird sein, as so groß wie a Jahr, that a day will be as long as a full year, and as the Sonne wird scheinen 7-mal so lichtig behind, and that the sun will be shining 7 times as brightly as today. The tzaddikim will nessen leviasin. The righteous will eat leviathan, dem shorabor, and the great ox, und trinken dem yain hameshumah, and drink the wine which has been guarded since the days of creation. Sarah hat afregetan. Sarah asked, wie viel Weiber wird haben jeder Mann? So how many wives will every man have? Ich will haben bloß dich. I will only have you. Ich will schon demals sein an Alter. But I'm going to be old by then. Du wirst bleiben ewig young. You'll always be young. Was he'll always be young. Was für ein Kleid will tragen? So what sort of clothing will I wear? Das Liegen mit Yankov in Bett is allein gewesen ein Stück Eden. To lie with Jacob in bed was itself a little bit of paradise. Sie hat nicht einmal begehrt, soll ewig dauern die Nacht. It wasn't only once that she was wishing that the night should stay forever. And sie soll ewig sein mit ihm, and she should be able to remain forever with him. Hören seine Red, to listen to his speech, vernehmen seine Zärtlichkeiten, and to absorb his caresses. Die Dose geschah in der Finster is given a Belohnung für alle ihre Bedrängnissen. This particular hour in the darkness was a payback for all of her difficulties. But there must be a better word for Bedrängnissen here.
I would think her suffering.
Yeah.
Or anxiety?
Yeah, anxieties. Yeah, that works. Anxieties. Später, wenn sie ist angeschlafen, later, when she fell asleep, hat der Cholam sie zurückgebracht in Dorf. Her dreams brought her back to the village, in der Chata, to the hovel, zum Berg, to the mountain, where she grew up. Sie hat gehabt allerlei Tuanischen mit Antecken, mit Baschan, mit der Mutter. In her dreams, she had all sorts of dealings with Antek, with Basha, and with her mother. In Cholam hat der Tatala allemal gelebt, und hat gerät zu ihr, klug geredet. In her dreams, her dear father was always still alive, and he would speak to her clever speech, was sie hat später vergessen, which she forgot later, wenn sie hat aufgewacht, when she woke up. Es ist bloß geblieben der noch Geschmack. All that remained was the aftertaste in the Euren und Affengumen, both in her ears and in her Gumen is
the palate.
Palate, yeah.
Wow, yeah.
Kind of interesting place. Okay, that's the aftertaste.
Yeah.
Telmal hat sich ihr geholmt, als Yankov is von ihrer weg. Sometimes she dreamed that Yankov had deserted her. Sie hat geweint in Schlaf, und Yankov hat sie übergeweckt. She cried in her sleep, and Yankov woke her up. Sie ist aufgekommen, aber gossen mit Schweiß. She woke up, drenched in sweat. Oh, Yankov, meiner, bist da. Oh, my Yankov, you're here. Danken Gott, thank God. Und sein Ponem ist geworden heiß und nass von ihrer Tränen, and his face became hot and wet with her tears. I'll continue a little bit then. In Mittentag is ungefahren in Mark, den Poritzes Karette. In the middle of the day, into the marketplace, drove up the landholder's carriage, mit vier Pferdspitz, driven by 4 horses in a line. Zwei Sangrets haben angetrieben. There were 2 people driving it. Now, I'm going to look up Stangret. Stangret, coachman. Yeah, 2 coachmen were driving it. Zwei Pacholkes, seien gestanden von hinten. And there were 2 Pacholkes who were standing behind, auf der Achse, on the axle. Now, what is a Pacholke? That
Some
one is
Google
not in my dictionary.
Translate. Oh, some. You need.
I'll have to look up that one later. Anyway, 2 other attendants then were standing behind, standing on the axle. Einer von die Antreiber hat geschallt mit a Trompeter. One of the drivers was blowing on a trumpet. Blaring on a trumpet. Die Juden in Pilitz haben sich erschrocken. The Jews in the town of Pilitz were very afraid. Der Poritz ist selten gekommen in Städten. It was seldom that the landholder would come into the town mit asa Pompe, with such pomp, und noch dazu in a gewöhnlichen Sommertag, and especially in an ordinary summer day, waren Schnitt, before the harvest. Adam Pelitsky is given bewaffnet mit a Schwert und a Pistol. Adam Pelitsky was armed with a sword and a pistol. Hat ausgesehen schicker. He appeared to be drunk. Wie nur is rausgesprungen von der Kotsch, as soon as he jumped down from his carriage, hat rausgezogen die Schwert von der Shade. He pulled out his sword from its sheath und genommen schreien mit benummener Keulis, and he began to scream with wild screams. Wo is Gershon? Where is Gershon? Ich'll im abhacken dem Kopf. I'll cut off his head. Ich'll lebendige Sticker von ihm reißen. I'll pull out living pieces of his body, mit Essig begissen, and I'll drench them in vinegar. Ich'll ihm und die Familie seinen zerschneiden aufpassen. I'll cut him and his family into strips. Wow. Und fahr die hinwerfen and throw it to the dogs. Teiljuden seien entlaufen. Some of the Jews ran off. Andere seien zugelaufen zum Poritz. Others ran up to the landholder und sich geprüft im Warfen zu die Fies and tried to throw him to the Fies, throw him to his feet.
No.
Themselves to his feet.
They must have been throwing themselves to his feet.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Geprüft im Warfen zu die
Yeah,
Fies.
im is dative here.
Yeah.
And they tried to throw themselves to him, to his feet. Oh, to his feet, yes.
Yeah.
Die Weiber haben alle genommen jammern. The women all began to wail, mit einmal, together, suddenly. Die Kinder, was Yankov hat mit sie gelernt, the children that Yankov would study with, haben der Herr dem gepilder. They heard the commotion. I'm on the next page. Und seien gelaufen, angucken dem Poritz, and they ran up to have a view, to catch sight of the Poritz, the landowner. Die Kotsch, his carriage, die Pferd, the horses, mit die verrissene Hälse und mit dem zierlichen Gespann, with their throats verrissen.
Torn? That's
it means torn, but it doesn't mean that in this context.
It doesn't mean that here, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe
dirty.
It could be, or it could just be that they've come up in a sweat.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Geschwan is the bridle and such, and Zirlich here means adorned, right?
Yeah, I think it means like bejeweled, like yes, like
yeah, it's sort of like ornamented. Yeah, ornamented.
Ornamented.
Yeah,
ornamented is not a word, I don't think, but that's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Emmets.
Encrusted.
Emmets hat geeilt, uns zu sagen Gershenen, dem Rashakol, as der Poret suchtem. Someone ran off to announce to Gershon, the head of the community, that the Poretz was looking for him. Nach dem ersten Harmider haben die Leid von Pilitz vernommen, was da tut sich. After this first commotion, the folk of Pilitz grasped what was happening here. Der Gershon hat nicht gehandelt ehrlich. This Gershon had not dealt honestly. Hat gehat genommen dem Poritzes Vermögen in Arrende. He had taken the Vermögen, the
property.
Property.
Yeah.
It's property, but it's more his entire property. His in Arrende, in rent.
Well, no,
in
Arrenda was no. I think it was like that was the system of work. You took the Arrenda and then you gave to the Poritz. It was like a leasehold kind of.
Yeah, an Arrenda is a leasehold. But what does it mean? He had taken all of the okay. He had taken as a lease all of the possessions of the Poritz. Good.
Yeah.
Aber hat sich aufgeführt, wie das haben Guts wollt gewinn sein Eigentum.
Yeah.
But he had dealt as if all of these possessions were his own possession.
Like it wasn't a leasehold, it was an actual, it was his, not just a lease.
As if it were his.
As if it were.
Wie das haben Guts wollt gewinn sein Eigentum. So he had it as a on loan, as a leasehold, but he treated it as his own. Hat sich gehat aufgestellt a Geräumhaus. He had put up a spacious house, genommen 3 Megidische Edems, and he had taken 3 sons-in-law who were also upper class. Ein Edem hat gemacht war a Rav. One of those sons-in-law he had turned into a rabbi. Dem anderen verscheuchet. The second one he made into the ritual slaughterer. Dem dritten hat gegeben die Chazaka zu bauen a shul. And to the third, he had given the rights to build a synagogue, und zu besorgen die Leute mit Pesach Dikmel, and to supply the community with Pesach flour. Allein Gershon, he himself, Gershon, hat sich ausgeklieben Vergabe von der Chevre Kedisha. He had selected himself to become the trustee of the burial society. Wiewohl der Poritz hat gehat geschenken die Jiden Erd, para besser Almen, even though the Poritz, the landowner, had gifted to the Jews land for a cemetery, hat Gershon sich geheißen Teier Batzolen par Akarka. Gershon had commanded to pay very dearly for a piece of land for a cemetery.
For a plot, I think.
Plot. Yeah, so maybe he
burial plots.
He bought his own burial plot, even though he could have used the communal one.
No.
I think he charged people.
Okay, hasten Tire I understand. He charged people, even though it was a gift. The land was gifted. Gift. He charged for the burial plots.
He was making a profit out of his gift.
Right. Leute Takanas von Vad Arba Haratzas, according to the established rules of the Council of the Four Lands, dürfen sich abgeben mit Arauflegen die Groinsteiren, was jeden haben bezahlt dem König, die Shiva Teuve Ha'ir. Okay, I have to go back, because the Shiva Teuve Ha'ir is the subject of the sentence. The 7 good folk of the city, and this is the rabbi and the shochet and the dayan. The 7 religious functionaries of the city were supposed to be involved with collecting the state taxes, which the Jews would then be paying to the king. Aber Gershon der Takif, but Gershon, this Takif, grasper, had alles bestimmt allein. He arranged it all himself. Auf die gute Freund, und jene, was haben ihm gehandelt, hat aufgelegt geringe Zinsen on his good friends, and those who buttered him up, he set small amounts of tax. Die andere haben getragen a last über die Keuches, but the others carried a burden above their abilities, beyond their strength. Vivoil allein, Gershon, is an Amoritz, even though he himself, Gershon, was an uneducated fellow, hat sich gegeben dem Titel Morenu. He had given himself the title Our Teacher. Und befeuillen dem Chazen, soll auf ihm warten mit Shemon Esrei. And he had commanded the cantor to wait for him to finish to start the recitation, the cantor's recitation of the 18 benedictions of the Amida. Wenn Gershonen is eingefallen inmitten der Woche zu gehen in Boderein, if it ever occurred to Gershon in the middle of the week to go to the bathhouse, something which the men usually would just do Friday afternoon, hat geheißen dem Beder heizen das Bad auf kolischen Cheshbon. He would command the bathhouse attendant to heat up the bath at the expense of the community.
Oh, what a guy.
Yeah, well, you can see why Prilitz is a bit annoyed at him. Should I continue or shall I hand it over?
Town. No, well, it's enough for me. Thank you, everybody.
So, Yank, if you want to pick up a little bit.
Okay.
We still have 7 minutes.
Jene, was Gershon hat zij getan Umrecht, haben wieviel mal gewarnt, als zij willen ihm vermasseren, fahren Poretz. Those to whom Gershon had committed an injustice had often warned that they would report him to the landowner. Und vor dem Ward in Lublin, and also to report him to the committee in Lublin. Aber Gershon hat sich vor keinem nicht übergeschrocken. But Gershon was afraid of no one. Hat gehabt a tzad in Vad. He had the support of affection in the Vad in the council. Der Poretz is ihm schuldig gewesen 1000 Gildoinim. The landowner owed him 1,000 Gildens. Und hat gehabt auf ihm a Wechsel, and he had a promissory note from him. Gershon is euch gewinn a kol velech mit andere Pritzim. He was also on intimate terms with other landowners.
I think that's pronounced Kol Valach, but I'm not sure. I can't find it here.
Yeah, I found it as he was on intimate terms with other landowners who were Adam Politsky's enemies. Der Gershon hat upon him gehat vergessen, as Yidden seinen in Golis. This Gershon had apparently forgotten that the Jews were in exile. Die Leid, was seine gekommen unsogen Gershonen, as der Porz will ihm schlecht tun, haben ihm geraten, as soll sich ergens behalten. The people who came to warn Gershon that the landowner wanted to harm him, they advised him to hide himself somewhere, in Keller oder auf dem Boden, bis beim Poretz wird riber dem Zorn. To hide him, they advised him to hide himself in a cellar or in an attic somewhere until the landowner had his anger had quietened, his rage had quietened. Aber Gershon hat gewollt weisen, as is nicht kein Pachten. But Gershon wanted to prove, to show that he was no coward. Hat angetan die seidene Beckesche. He put on his silk long kaftan on dem säubelnden Hut and his sable hat, umgegurt die Lenden mit a Gartel und is a Reus zum Porz, and he girded his hips with a gartel, a belt, and he went out to the landowner. Hat sich gekleid wie a Kleid Kodesh. So he dressed himself as a religious leader. Aber hat gehat a roit ponim von a katzer, but he had the red face of a butcher. Auf ein Kinn is ihm gewachsen a grey berdel. On his chin, a little grey beard was grow. A sparse grey, a grey beard was growing. Shitter jeder Haar ibezuzählen. It was sparse. One could count each individual strand of hair. Had gehat a krumme nose. He had a crooked nose, dicke Lippen, und a spitzigen Bauch, wie bei a Jidene auf der Zeit. So he had a crooked nose, thick lips, and a pointy belly, like a woman who was about to give birth. Die Augen unter die gedichte Bremen seien gesessen bei ihm krumm. His eyes under his thick eyebrows sat, they were crooked. Ein Aug größer wie der andere. One eye larger than the other. A chutz far a takif hat euch gehat genommen far an eingesparten. Besides the reputation of being a takif, powerful, influential, he also had a name of being stubborn. Hat sich lieb gehabt zu sparen wegen Dinim. Loschen koidische Wörter. He loved to gush out about laws, about Hebrew in Hebrew words on Sforim and holy books. Wenn hat sich Aufgestellt reden bei es an a Sefer is jedes dritter Wort seins gewinner greis. When he stood up to speak at a meeting, every second word that he uttered was an error. Und geplappelt hat so lang, bis die Leid seinen eingeschlafen. And he babbled on for so long that people fell asleep. Und der Tzad shekeneged hat mehr nicht gehabt kein Gelegenheit zu sagen das Seinike. And the people who were opposing him didn't have the opportunity to counter him. Also hat geführt Pilitz mit a starker Hand. And this is how he managed, he ran Pilitz, the Jewish community in Pilitz, with a strong hand.